This is the Samsung Galaxy S8 and it's about time that I give this phone a review. Let's go! Hi, I'm David and I've had this Samsung S8 for almost a month now, so that's given me more than enough time to actually test this and see how well it does in the real world. How it performs on a day-to-day basis, how the battery performs, how your normal app performance would be, camera performance, all of that type of stuff. I've had a decent enough time now to actually put this to its test, see if this bezel-less new trend is actually something that's worthwhile. It's been pretty much my daily driver for the last month that I've had it actually, and I'm not going to be turning back to my Huawei. This is now my daily driver. The display and the design of this phone is pretty much exceptional, just to put it bluntly. Well, apart from the fingerprint reader placement, but I'll get to that a bit later on. The design is quite good in terms of the size. It's got 18 by 5.9 aspect ratio on the screen with 1440p Quad HD Super AMOLED display, Samsung speciality. So you're going to have true blacks, and as it has an HDR display, you're going to have quite a lot of color depth when that content becomes available. Currently for me here in Germany, I haven't received any of that yet, but when it becomes available, that will be great. The 18.5 by 9 aspect ratio is pretty much, I found it a bit of a hit or a miss. It's great when you're scrolling through apps and if you're reading something, but in terms of using it as a split screen with multiple apps running, I find that more of a gimmick. Unless you're someone that likes to do that, or if you're replying to emails or replying to some type of message, that then could obviously be useful, as you can read the message whilst you're writing the other one simultaneously. And as for YouTube videos or any other type of videos that you're watching on the device and you use the full 18 by 9 aspect ratio on the device, I haven't found it to be much of a problem when watching YouTube videos. Just a small portion of the video will be cut out, but majority of the time the person or the focus of the video is more central, so there's not going to really be much of a loss in terms of video. The overall ergonomics of this phone, how it feels in your hand, it fits very nicely in your hand. You can hold it quite well. I would say it's pretty much the optimum size that it should be, and with the curves you don't have any weird edges or anything like that. It fits very nicely into your hand, and with this one, the 5.8 inch screen, you've pretty much got a good reach of most things from the top to the bottom. Performance wise, you've got a Snapdragon 835 with Adreno 540 and 4GB of RAM, so that's going to be pretty much future proof for the next year, maybe even 2. It should do quite well still, as a lot of the phones now are running with a similar type of setup. That's not that much of a difference you're going to see in your Huawei's, LG's, HTC's, Sony's, etc, etc. What this means though for your phone is you can have a very smooth interface. Things shouldn't lag. I personally haven't experienced much of it, except for a small glitch or two with Instagram, but that was more of an app-related error, I think. And you're going to have a much greater virtual reality experience, as things can process a lot quicker. And that also brings me back to that Quad HD display. I don't have it on very often, but for certain things, if I want to watch something in Quad HD or if I'm doing something with virtual reality, then that really does have its advantages with that extra bit of resolution. Whilst I'm here though, with that type of spec, the Samsung S8 is waterproof and dustproof IP68, so that's 1.5 meters and for 30 minutes or something like that. It's dust and waterproof, so if you drop it into the basin or into a pool or something like that, it's going to be fine. Probably. Another great thing about this phone is that it comes with 64GB of built-in memory. For some of us that's okay, but if you're like me, it does have a micro SD card slot, so you can bump it up and then store a lot of video, pictures, all that type of stuff onto your phone and keep your apps on the built-in memory. The rear camera on the S8 is a marginal improvement from the Samsung Galaxy S7. It's still a 12 megapixel with a f1.7 sensor, which it produces brilliant pictures, but you're not going to have much of a difference in terms of your S7 quality to your S8. With such a small sensor, you're still going to have low quality in low light situations, but overall in good lighting, you're going to have some pretty good pictures with your smartphone. It shoots 4K video at your regular frame rate, so 30 frames per second, 25 frames per second, 24 frames per second, and then also slow motion at 1080p is 60 frames per second, and 720p is 240 frames per second. Yes. That's not exactly exceptional if you compare it with the Sony now at 960 frames per second for a second, but it's usable, it's very good actually. It's the Sony now, that large leap forward that they've made with that 960 frames per second super slow motion, but 240 frames per second for most of us will be alright. The front camera is really where they've made most of the difference though. It's now an 8 megapixel sensor, which can film in Quad HD, so 1440p, which is going to make your Skype videos all the more interesting, as you can see all the more detail. So time to make up ladies and gents. You know, this is not a sexist channel here, so yeah. The speakers on the S8 I found have been adequate. You've got your rear mounted speaker at the bottom here, which doesn't produce that much power, and then on the top you've got the small one here, which also doesn't produce much at all really. But Samsung have been kind enough to include a pair of AKG headphones, which actually are pretty great, and I would definitely recommend them. They do actually have a very good quality audio performance, and they have a nice feel in the ear actually. I have some weird ears for some reason, and most of these things don't actually fit in my ears. These do, so thumbs up if they're AKG or Samsung or whoever I have to thank for that. Thank you. Speaking of things at the bottom here, we've got the headphone jack, so earphones, headphone jack, obviously you need to have that then. Well, unless they're wireless, but let's not get into that now. And then you have the USB-C connector here for fast charging. My experience with the fast charging here takes about an hour and a half to get from 10% to full. In about a half an hour you'll get to about 70%, and then it slows down a bit. But that's actually quite good in terms of charge speed. There is a 3000 milliamp battery in here, and for me, with my moderate amount of usage that I get through in a day, I normally go to bed with it at about 30%, and then I just hit it onto the charger for the next day. So 30% is my daily average. That's with about a moderate amount of use. I'm not exactly constantly watching videos or playing games on this device, in which case you're probably going to get to bed at about 10% or 5% or something like that. But you can just carry around a power bank with you, charge it midway through the day or anything like that, because it does charge quite quickly to get up to about 40%, 50%. As we're seeing with a lot of smartphones this year, Bluetooth 5 is becoming a standard. The Samsung S8 does have that. It was actually the first phone to have Bluetooth 5 included, and I do find it to be a lot more functional for your phone now and in the future. Currently it's not quite as functional as it could be, but in the future I can see it having a lot more uses. Currently though, you can use it to sync up two speakers, and then you have a bit more power, or to sync up two wireless headphones for your friend and yourself. You can both be watching the same thing on your phone. You'll both be able to hear it through your own pair of individuals earphones instead of having to share one. And it just makes things a bit more efficient and easier. You have further range and a bit more on Bluetooth 5. Check out that video in the corner over there, or over there, I can't remember which way I record now. So back onto that fingerprint reader. It is pretty awkward at the back there. It does work quite well though. There we go. But it's still not the best positioning of a fingerprint reader really, to be honest. I did find that when I got a case for the S8, it was a lot easier to reach, as that button is now being sort of protruded out there, like Samsung should have done in the first place, or moved it below here somewhere. Anyway, that is not really that big of a problem now. This case, by the way, is actually quite nice. For $10 you have quite a good case. It does provide a decent amount of security. It clips off the bottom here and at the top, and then that's how it connects up to the device. Something like that. Now it's connected. Good. It is quite a secure case. It's more really for scratch resistance than anything else. It does have a bit of a bezel on the top here and on the bottom here, so it's not going. If you lay your phone on a surface, it's not going to get, the screen won't be scratched that easily. And on the back, it does have a pop out here, and well, you're not going to scratch your camera really, or the anything at the back there really. The S8 does have Gorilla Glass 5, so if you do drop your phone, it should survive a crash a little bit better than previous models, but I'm not gonna test that for you. But if you really don't like the fingerprint reader, you can go with a naked S8. It does have iris scanner and the face detection, both of which I found to not really be my favorite. They work very well, I will admit to that, but you have to hold the phone in such a weird position that unless you're alone, it doesn't actually serve its purpose very well. So mostly if I'm outside in public or something, I will use a fingerprint reader, but if I'm at home, I'll just push the button and then have the faceprint reader unlock my phone for me. I've tried using pictures and that to unlock, so Samsung has actually provided some updates which have gotten the face detection to be a little bit more secure than it was before. My biggest complaint that everyone else also seems to have is Bixby, or at least the button, because whenever I try and unlock my phone, here is the lock button on this side and the Bixby button is on this side. So whenever I try and unlock my phone, I have a bit of a grasp here and I can sometimes push that Bixby button at the same time as I do the lock button, and then I come automatically into Bixby and then I have to get out of Bixby and then I want to go to where I actually want to go, which just takes time, and Bixby doesn't really do much anyway. Google Assistant is much better. You have that bit of that force touch at the bottom here as well, and then if you hold it in for a bit longer, Google Assistant comes up and it is just much better. They've been doing it for a lot longer than Samsung, so Samsung, just get rid of the Bixby and allow us to change it if we want to. Apart from that though, really, this is a very good phone and it's probably the best phone I've ever used. It's a great interface. The bezel-less function and the bezel-less interface is actually a very good, I would say gimmick, but it's just it's technology, things are developing. It's a very good feature, and the phone itself in terms of its functionality is exceptional, as you'd expect from a new Samsung flagship, and I would highly recommend it. If you want to check out that Samsung S8 cover I showed you, links below, have a look at it. Pretty good for its price, and unless you drop your phone a lot, I would recommend rather going for something more secure. More with one of those bumper cases, you know, like a full-on foam matting around your smartphone. That might be the answer for you. Anyway, that's it from me. I hope you liked this video. If so, please hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you have any questions, comment below. If you want me to do a full camera review on this phone, let me know below, and I'm gonna see you in the next one. Ciao.